The morning I drove over to get my mother's recipes back, they were already gone. They were sitting at the bottom of a county dumpster somewhere I would never find. And the woman who threw them out handed me a cup of coffee while she told me, like it was nothing, like she was telling me she had cleaned out a junk drawer. Her name is Gloria. She married my father 6 years ago. I want to say up front that she is not a cruel woman, because the easy version of this story makes her a villain, and the easy version is a lie. She is tidy. She is the kind of person who alphabetizes the spice rack and keeps the instruction manuals for appliances she no longer owns. She grew up with nothing, real nothing, the kind where you move in the night owing rent. And somewhere in there she decided that clutter was the enemy, and that holding on to things was a weakness she could not afford. I understand her better now than I did that morning. That morning I could have put my hands around the idea of her and squeezed. My name is Rachel. I am 38. I keep the books for a heating and cooling company outside Columbus, Ohio. Which means I am good with numbers and careful with money, and not, by any stretch anyone who knew me would have made, a person who opens a bakery. I have a daughter, Maya, who was 16 that year. And I had a mother, Evelyn, who passed 14 months before the morning with the coffee. She got sick, the bad kind, the kind with a name nobody wants to say at a dinner table. And then she was gone faster than any of us were ready for, the way it always is no matter how much warning you get. My mother baked. Not as a hobby, but as the main way she had of being in the world. She kept a shoebox, an actual Florsheim shoebox gone soft at the corners from 30 years of hands. Inside it were recipe cards and torn envelopes and the backs of electric bills, all of them in her handwriting, all of them stained with vanilla and butter and the brown ghost of a coffee ring she never wiped off because she said it was good luck. Some of the cards went back to before I was born. Some were in her own mother's hand, my grandmother, who I barely remember. That box was not a box of recipes. It was the only thing left in the world that still had my mother's hands all over it. Her crossouts. Her notes in the margins. Bake till it smells done, not till the timer says so. You cannot buy that back. You cannot reprint it. In our house, the baking was never just instructions. In my mother's hands, the recipes were how she said things she could not say out loud. When I made the volleyball team and then quit it 3 weeks later because the girls were cruel, she did not lecture me. She made the molasses cookies, the soft ones, and left the tin on my bed. When my parents had one of their bad winters, the year I was 11 and the house went cold and quiet, she baked more, not less, like she was trying to hold the walls up with butter and flour. The morning my grandmother passed, my mother got the call at 6 in the morning, and by 7 she had bread in the oven. She stood at the counter in her robe with her face wet, working the dough, because her hands needed somewhere to put it. I learned all of that standing next to her. I learned that you bake at the worst moments, not the best ones. I did not know I had learned it until I was the one at the counter at 2 in the morning with my own face wet, and my hands knew exactly what to do without asking me. The box held 30 years of that. Every card was a day she had loved somebody through an oven. After the funeral, when we cleaned out my mother's little house on Linden Avenue, I took almost nothing. I was drowning and I could not look at her coats. But I took the shoebox. And here is the part one have gone over 1,000 times since, the part that is mine to carry. My own kitchen is the size of a closet. I told myself the box would be safer at my father's house, in the dry part of the basement, just until I figured out a real place for it. My father said, of course. Gloria was standing right there. She did not say anything at all. For about a year, I did not go get it. That is the truth, and it does not make me look good. Grief makes you strange about things. Some days I wanted the box so badly I would start driving over and turn around halfway. Other days the thought of opening it and smelling her was more than I could do. So I left it in the dry part of the basement and I told myself there was time. There is never as much time as you tell yourself. What finally moved me was Maya. It was coming up on the anniversary, 14 months out, and Maya asked if we could make Grandma's morning cake. That was what we called it, the morning cake, this dense cinnamon thing my mother made for every birthday and every first day of school, and every morning that needed to be better than it was going to be otherwise. Maya wanted to make it for the anniversary. And I realized I did not have the recipe in my head clean enough to trust it, the exact thing, the proportions. And the card was sitting in my father's basement where it had been sitting for a year. So I called my dad and said I was coming Saturday to get Mom's box, finally. And he went quiet in a way I did not understand yet and said, "Okay, honey, come on by." I have to tell you about my father, because his quiet is its own character in this. Tom. He is a gentle man, and a coward in the specific way gentlemen sometimes are, which is that he will let a small wrong stand rather than have a hard conversation about it. He loved my mother. He also loves Gloria, and I believe both of those things are true at once. His whole strategy for staying married twice has been to never, ever be the one who makes the room uncomfortable. Keep the peace. That was practically his religion. Keep the peace even when the peace is built on something that should be set on fire. So I drove over that Saturday. Gloria met me at the door, warm. She is always warm on the surface, and she made coffee. And I said I just came for Mom's recipe box from the basement, and she got a look on her face. Not a guilty look. A confused look. She said, "The old shoebox? With the papers?" And something cold started in my stomach before my brain had caught up. I said yes, that one. And she said, "Oh, Rachel, honey, I cleared out the basement back in the spring. There was so much down there. It was all damp and the cardboard was going soft and growing mildew. I thought it was just old paper. I asked her where it was. I asked it very calmly. I was holding the coffee she had given me, and I remember thinking I should put it down before my hand stopped working. She said it went out with the spring cleanup, the big haul, when the church did the dumpster weekend for the neighborhood. You remember, Tom, we filled the whole thing. She said it like she was proud of the work. She turned to my father for confirmation, and my father looked at the floor, and right then I understood that he had known. Maybe not that day. But at some point in the months since spring, my father had learned that my mother's recipes were gone. And he had decided that telling me was a harder conversation than not telling me. And he had kept his peace. I did not scream. In the version I have replayed since, I scream. But in the real one, I just stood in their kitchen and felt the floor go out from under 14 months of careful holding together. I said, "That was Mom's. That was Mom's handwriting." Gloria said, "I know, honey, but it was ruined. The damp had gotten to it." And even as she said it, I could see she believed it. She genuinely believed she had done a small helpful chore, and that belief was so much worse than malice. If she had hated my mother, I could have hated her back clean. But she did not hate my mother. She just never once understood what that box was, because she is not a person who has ever kept a thing for love. To her it was wet cardboard. To me it was the last of my mother's hands. My father said, "Rachel, let us all just take a breath." And something about take a breath, his go-to, his keep the peace, broke the calm I had been holding. I said, "You knew." I did not ask it. He did not answer it, which was the answer. I put the coffee down on the counter, carefully, because I am my mother's daughter, and you do not slam things in someone's house, and I left. Gloria called after me that she was sorry I was upset. Upset. I drove 3 blocks and pulled over because I could not see. I did not talk to either of them for a long time after that. People will tell you that is not healthy, cutting your father off, and maybe it is not. But there are wounds you cannot be in the same room as while they are fresh. I will tell you one thing about Gloria from that stretch, because it sat with me. About a month into not speaking, my aunt, my father's sister, called me to try to smooth things, the way somebody always does. And she told me something I had not known. When Gloria was a girl, 9 or 10, her family got evicted. The landlord put everything they owned out on the curb. And by the time Gloria's mother got home from work, most of it was gone. taken or rained on, including a box of the kids' baby pictures, the only photos that family had. My aunt told me that story like it was supposed to make me feel for Gloria, and the strange thing is it did and it did not, both at once. Because the woman who lost her childhood photos to a curb grew up into a woman who throws other people's irreplaceable things into a dumpster without a second thought. You would think it would go the other way. You would think she of all people would know. Instead, she built herself into someone who decided that the way to never be hurt by losing things was to never let things matter that much, to anyone, including the ones who are gone. I understood her better after that call. I did not forgive her more. Understanding and forgiving turned out to be two different rooms, and I could stand in one without standing in the other. Maya kept asking what happened to the morning cake, and I kept saying we would figure it out, we would figure it out. But before I could even start trying to remember anything, I spent 2 weeks trying to get the box back. I needed those 2 weeks to be over before I could let go of the idea that it still existed somewhere. I started with the church. Gloria had said the box went out during the neighborhood dumpster weekend the church organized. So I called the church office and got a woman named Pat who runs their volunteer drives. Pat was kind and a little confused by my questions. She told me the dumpsters that weekend had been hauled by the county's contracted company, that the church just rents the bins, and she gave me the name. Rumpke. The hauler that does half of Ohio. So I called Rumpke. I have never wanted anything from a customer service line the way I wanted something from that one. I explained it 3 times to 3 people getting transferred up. A box of papers, my mother's, thrown out by mistake, the church dumpster weekend in the spring. Was there any way at all, to know where that load went, or whether anything could be recovered? The last person I talked to was a supervisor named Greg, and Greg was not unkind, which somehow made it worse. He explained to me how it works, gently, like he had to explain it before. Residential and bulk loads from that area go to a transfer station and then to the landfill, and they get compacted. A load from spring, by now months later, is gone, compacted into the ground under 100 other loads. He said, "Ma'am, I am sorry, but there is nothing from that far back that anybody could ever find or get to." He said the month's waste is long destroyed. I drove out to the transfer station anyway. I know how that sounds. I drove out there on a Tuesday on my lunch break and stood at a counter and asked a man in a reflective vest the same questions. He looked at me like he felt bad for me, and he told me the same thing Greg had, slower. He even walked me to a window where you could see the floor where the trucks dump, this enormous pit of everything nobody wanted. And he said, "That is 3 days worth right there, and it is already going out. Whatever you were looking for went through here in the spring. It is 4 months in the ground." He was not cruel about it. He was just standing in the truth of it all day, every day, the place where the things people throw away actually go, and he was watching me arrive at it for the first time. I sat in my car in that parking lot with the smell of the place on my clothes, and I understood, finally, all the way down, that the box was not coming back. Not findable. Not recoverable. Not in a drawer. Not at the bottom of a bin. Not anywhere. My mother's handwriting was in the ground under 4 months of other people's garbage, and it was going to stay there. That was the bottom. The bottom was a parking lot at a waste transfer station, which is not where you picture grief taking you, and it took me about a week after that before I could do anything at all. Maya found me at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning with a legal pad, crying, a week after the transfer station. She sat down next to me and said, "Mom, what are you doing?" And I said, "I am trying to remember." I was trying to remember the recipes. I had written morning cake at the top of the legal pad, and underneath it I was just sitting there. And then almost without deciding to, I wrote 2¼ cups flour. And then I wrote a teaspoon of cinnamon, but the good cinnamon, the Saigon kind in the red tin, because that is what my mother always said, not just cinnamon, the good cinnamon. And my hand kept going. And then it hit me, the thing neither Gloria nor I had understood. I did not learn those recipes off the cards. I learned them standing on a kitchen chair next to my mother for 30 years. The cards were her backup. I was the backup she did not know she had. My hands knew the morning cake. My mouth knew when the batter was wrong. The box was gone, but the box had never been the real copy. I filled 4 pages that night. Maya made tea and sat with me, and I would say a recipe out loud and she would write while I worked it in my head. The apple cake with the cornmeal in it. The soft molasses cookies my mother made at Christmas that stayed soft for 2 weeks in a tin. The lemon bars. The brown bread she steamed in a coffee can. The cornmeal came back to me. So did the coffee can. By the time the sun came up, we had pages, real pages, and I was laughing and crying at the same time, and Maya was looking at me like she had never quite seen me before. And she said, "Mom, you should sell these. People would pay for this." And I laughed, because I keep the books for a heating and cooling company. And she said it again, not laughing. "Mom, people would pay for this." I did not open a bakery the next week. It was slower and more frightening than the montage. What happened is I baked. I baked the morning cake 6 times before it was right. And then I made the apple cake for the women in my office, and Carla from accounts payable took one bite and her eyes filled up. She said it tasted exactly like her grandmother's, a woman who had been gone 20 years, and she asked if she could buy one for her sister. That was the first dollar. Carla's $12 for an apple cake for her sister. Word moved the way it moves in a place like ours, one woman telling another at church, at the salon, at the desk next to her. I started taking orders I had no business taking, baking at night after work, my little closet kitchen full of cooling racks balanced on the washing machine. Maya did the labels and a little notebook of who ordered what. I was exhausted, and I was more alive than I had been since my mother got sick. And I knew the way you know a true thing in your chest, that this was the only way left to keep my mother in the world. Not the box. This. Her recipes coming out of an oven and making a stranger cry at her own kitchen table because it tasted like someone she had lost. There was a man named Daniel I used to work with who had left to manage a little coffee shop on Main Street, the kind with 3 tables and a bell on the door. He heard from someone what I was doing, and he called me and said he had counter space and a second oven he was not using, and would I want to sell out of his place on weekends, just to try it. I said I could not afford rent. He said, "Then we will do a split. You do not pay me until you are making it." Daniel is a careful man, not a sentimental one, and when a careful man bets on you, it lands different than when your daughter does. I cried after I hung up. I was doing a lot of crying that year, but it had started to change flavor from the kind that empties you to the kind that means something is moving. So we set up at Daniel's on a Saturday in October. I made everything I could remember, and people came. They came the first week and more came the second, because Carla told people and Daniel's regulars told people. There was a morning where I sold out by 10 and stood behind that little counter with flour on my shirt and my mother's apple cake gone from the case, and I thought, she would not believe this. My mother, who sold nothing, who gave everything she baked away for free to neighbors and the church and anyone who looked thin, would not believe her daughter was taking money for it. I felt close to her in a way I had not since the funeral. It was not all good mornings, and I do not want to tell it like it was. There was a Saturday it rained and 4 people came the whole day, and I sat in my car afterward doing the math on my phone, the real math, the bookkeeper math, and the numbers said this was a hobby pretending to be a living. And I cried the bad kind of crying, the kind from before. Maya found the spreadsheet open on my laptop that night, all my doubts in cells, and she did not say anything dramatic. She just made 2 cups of tea and sat down and said, "What if we did the farmer's market on Wednesdays too?" 16 years old, doing my own job better than me, refusing to let me quit the thing she had talked me into. There were a lot of nights like that, where the only reason I did not fold was a teenager who believed in her grandmother's cake more than she believed in being asleep on a school night. I started telling people Maya was my business partner, half a joke, except it was not a joke, it was just true. The thing that almost ended all of it happened in December, and it was the closest I came to walking away. I took an order I had no business taking, my biggest yet, 120 pastries and 3 full sheet cakes for a 50th wedding anniversary, a big family from the next town over. The kind of order that, if it went well, would have paid 2 months of what I owed Daniel and put me, for the first time, actually ahead. I baked for 3 nights. I had everything staged in the second-hand commercial cooler I had bought off a closing restaurant for $400, the single most expensive thing I owned for the business. And I went to bed the night before the event prouder of myself than I had been in a long time. The cooler gave out in the night. I do not know exactly when. I came down at 4 in the morning to start loading, and the light did not come on, and the inside was warm, and everything, 3 nights of work, all of it, had sat at room temperature for hours. The buttercream had broken. The cream fillings were gone, not safe to serve. I could not put that in front of a family even if they never knew. I would have known. I stood in my kitchen at 4 in the morning looking at 2 months of catching up turned into garbage, an anniversary I was about to ruin, and a $400 cooler that was now scrap. I called the family's daughter at 6 and told her the truth, that my equipment failed and I could not deliver safe food, and I was so sorry. And she was gracious about it in the way that somehow made me feel worse. They had to scramble for grocery store cakes for their parents' 50th because of me. I refunded their deposit, which I had already half spent. I ate the cost of all those ingredients. I sat on my kitchen floor against the broken cooler, and I told Maya, when she came down for school, that I thought we were done. That this was a sign. That real businesses have backup equipment and insurance and a cushion, and I had a $400 cooler from a closing diner and a teenager doing the books. Maya sat down on the floor next to me. She did not tell me it would be fine. She was 16, but she was smart enough not to say something we both knew might not be true. What she said was, Grandma's first oven was the one that came with the house, and it ran hot on one side her whole life, and she never once made a bad thing in it. She made it work. You can make this work. And then she said, but if you want to quit, we will quit, and I will not be mad. It was the giving me permission to quit that made me not quit. I borrowed money I did not want to borrow from Daniel, who did not make it weird, and I bought a better cooler, used but newer, and an alarm that would call my phone if the temperature ever rose again. And I kept going one more time because my mother made it work on an oven that ran hot on one side, and because my daughter had handed me the door out and I found I did not want to walk through it. But the morning cake was not right. The morning cake was the one thing that drove the rest of it. Everything else came back to me whole. The morning cake came back almost whole, 90%, close enough that people bought it and loved it and had no idea anything was missing. But I knew. You have to understand what that cake was. My mother made it on mornings that needed help. First day of school, every year, from kindergarten through the day I left for community college, there was a morning cake on the table when I came down, warm, the cinnamon smell filling the stairwell so I would smell it before I saw it. The morning of my wedding, before everything with Maya's father went the way it went, there was a morning cake. The morning after my mother's own diagnosis, when I drove over not knowing what to say, she had already made one, for me, like it was my bad news to be carried through and not hers. It was the cake that meant you are loved and today is survivable. Maya grew up on it the same way. When Maya asked for the morning cake for the anniversary, she was not asking for a dessert. She was asking for the thing that meant today is survivable, on the one day a year that most needed to be. And I could not make it right. I could give the whole town my mother's apple cake and her molasses cookies, and I could not, for my own grieving daughter, reproduce the one cake that meant the most, because the one turn it needed had gone into the dumpster with the card. There was something in my mother's morning cake, some single turn, that I could not get to. It haunted me. I would make a batch at midnight and stand in my kitchen eating it with my eyes closed, trying to find the gap, the one thing my hands had forgotten that my mother's hands had known, and it was not there. The most important recipe, the one the whole thing started with, the one Maya had asked for, was the one I could not finish. So I went looking. This is the part where I went a little out of my mind about it, I will admit. I drove to my mother's old house on Linden, which had not sold yet, sitting empty with a lockbox on the door, and I let myself believe maybe a card had fallen behind a drawer, maybe in the move something got left. The realtor let me in. I went through every cabinet in that empty kitchen on my knees, running my hand along the backs of shelves, and there was nothing, just the smell of a house with no one in it, which is its own kind of grief. My mother's furniture and boxes had gone into a storage unit my father was paying for, the overflow we had not dealt with. I drove there next with the gate code, and I sat on the concrete floor of that unit pulling the tape off boxes I had not been able to face in over a year. Her winter coats. Her good dishes wrapped in newspaper. A box of my old report cards she had kept, every one, kindergarten through 12th grade, which undid me for a while right there on the floor. And then in a box of papers, her tax folders and warranty cards, and the boring administrative sediment of a life, there was an envelope with my name on it. Rachel. In her handwriting. Not a card. Not a recipe. An envelope sealed with my name. And it was not new. The ink had that slightly faded look, and I understood before I opened it that she had written it while she was sick, while she knew, and had put it somewhere she figured I would find it eventually, going through her things, the way I was right now. I sat on the floor of that storage unit and I opened it. I am not going to be able to give you the whole letter, some of it is just mine. But I will give you the part that broke me open and then put me back together different. She wrote about ordinary things first, the way she would, instructions about the house and an apology for the mess in the basement, which I could not even laugh at. And then she wrote this, and I have it memorized now the way I have her recipes memorized, because I have read it more times than I have read anything in my life. She wrote, "Every time you told me I should sell my pies, I laughed at you. I want you to know the truth now because I was never brave enough to say it out loud. I wanted that more than almost anything. I used to lie awake and design the little shop in my head, the name of it, the color I would paint the door. I knew the whole thing down to the spoons. And I never did one single thing about it because I was afraid, Rachel. I was afraid I would fail and everyone would see, and the fear was bigger than the wanting every year for 40 years. A few paragraphs later. You were always braver than me. You do not know it about yourself, but you are. You do the things I only ever thought about." And near the end, the line I will hear in her voice until I am gone myself. "If you ever want to try it for both of us." There was one more thing in the letter, near the bottom, almost an afterthought, the way the most important things sometimes get written. She wrote, "There is something I never told your father. He thinks it was my decision to let the shop idea go. I let him think that all these years because the truth was harder and there was no point in it. I am telling you so that somebody knows the real shape of it." That was all she wrote about it. She did not spell it out. But I had grown up in that house, and I could feel the shape of what she was not saying, and it sat in my chest for days. He thinks it was my decision. Which meant it was not really, and she had carried the difference alone for 40 years rather than make him feel it. That letter undid me, sitting on that cold floor. I had already started. I had a counter at Daniel's and flour on my shirts and a town that was buying my mother's baking. I had already, without knowing it, without her knowing it, begun doing the exact thing she had been too afraid to do for 40 years. She wrote that letter thinking she was giving me permission for something I might do someday. And I was reading it having already begun. It was like she had reached forward through 14 months and put her hand flat on my back and pushed, gently, the way she used to push me toward the diving board when I was small and scared. "Go on. Go on. I have got you. I cried in that storage unit until a man 2 doors down came to see if I was all right. I told him I had found something I had been looking for, which was true, though it was not the recipe. The letter changed what I was doing, even though it did not change a single ingredient. Before the letter, I was trying to keep my mother. After the letter, I was trying to live the things she did not get to. Those are different jobs. The first one is about the past. The second one is about going forward, and it is heavier and better. It meant the bakery was not a memorial anymore. It was a dare she had left me. The color she would have painted the door. I asked my father, the first time we had really talked, what color my mother would have painted a shop door. And he did not ask why. He just got quiet and then said, "Blue, a soft blue." She always said a blue door meant welcome. That is the color of my door now. I will get to the door. That conversation with my father was the first real one we had had since the kitchen. I had called him because of the letter, because I had to tell someone what she had written, and he was the only other person on earth who had loved her that long. I did not read him the part about there is something I never told your father. I sat with that for a long time before I called him, turning it over. I had a choice to make and I knew it. I could tell him outright, put the letter in his hand and let him read he thinks it was my decision, and watch him understand that one careful sentence of his 40 years ago had quietly ended something in her. Part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted him to hurt the way I was hurting. He had already let me down once that year, with the box, with the keeping of the piece. It would have been easy to let him have this too. I did not. My mother had carried it alone for 40 years, so he would not have to. Handing it to him now, after she was gone, when he could not even make it right with her, would have been for me, not for her. So I kept that part to myself. What I did instead was tell him about the shop she had designed in her head, the name, the door, the spoons, all the detail of how badly she had wanted it. And then I just said, quietly, "Did she ever talk to you about wanting something like that early on?" I left it open. I let him walk toward it himself. There was a long silence on the phone. And then he said, in a voice I had never heard from him, "She told me about it once. Early, when we were first married. She said someday she wanted a little shop, and I said that sounds like a lot of risk. With a baby coming." He stopped. The silence after that went on so long I thought the call had dropped. And then he said, more to himself than to me, "I think I talked her out of it. I think I did that. I just said the careful thing, and she heard it, and she never brought it up again. Not once, 40 years, and I told myself she had lost interest." He had gotten there on his own, with one open question, faster than I expected, because some part of him had always half known. My father is not a man who examines himself out loud, and I could hear what it cost him to arrive at it. To understand that his whole life strategy of keeping things calm and safe had, one ordinary evening 40 years ago, closed a door on the woman he loved, and that she had let him believe it was her own hand that closed it. I did not confirm it. I did not say the letter said so. I did not have to, and confirming it would have been its own kind of cruelty, turning his own dawning understanding into a verdict I handed down. I just let the quiet hold it. We stayed on the phone a while, not saying much. Two people who had loved the same brave, scared woman, and were only now, too late, understanding what she had carried, and what she had carried alone on purpose. But the morning cake was still wrong, and the letter did not have the recipe in it. And somewhere in the weeks after I found it, I finally understood the thing this whole story had been walking me toward. I was never going to find the original. It was gone. There was no card in a drawer, no copy at a neighbor's, no version of this where the lost thing comes back. Gloria put it in a dumpster, and the dumpster went to a landfill, and that specific arrangement of my mother's pen on a torn envelope does not exist on this earth anymore. I had to stop waiting for it to come back. And the day I really accepted that, I did the only thing left to do, which is the thing my mother actually did, the thing the cards never captured. My mother did not bake from cards. She baked and tasted and fixed it and tasted again. The cards were just where she wrote down the version she had finally arrived at. So I stopped trying to remember her morning cake, and I started trying to make a morning cake, mine, from the 90% I had, by doing what she did, the tasting and the fixing and the tasting again. It took weeks. I am not going to pretend it was a montage. I made bad cakes. I made a cake so wrong Maya spit it in the sink, and we both laughed until we could not breathe, which we needed. I changed the cinnamon and changed it back. I tried more egg, less egg. I tried buttermilk, which turned out to be closer, and I remember the night the buttermilk happened I felt my mother very near, like she was leaning over my shoulder saying warmer, warmer, the way you do in a children's game. I tried brown sugar where I had been using white. I tried letting the batter rest overnight, and that was a piece of it. That was real. My mother used to mix things the night before. She said baking should not be rushed any more than people should. And one Tuesday night, late, after I had told Maya to go to bed twice, I pulled a cake out of the oven that smelled the way I had been chasing. I did not even believe it. I cut it while it was still too hot, which my mother would have scolded me for, and I put a piece on a plate, and I called Maya down because I could not be alone for it either way it went. Maya was half asleep in her pajamas. She took a bite. And she stopped. And she did not say it was amazing. She did not perform it. She just got still, and her eyes did something, and she looked up at me and said, "Mom, this tastes right." That is all she said. This tastes right. And it did. It was not my mother's cake. The sweet lie would be that I had recovered it exactly, and I did not, and the truth is better. It was a morning cake that came out of my hands the way hers came out of hers, made the way she made things, by feel and by failing and by trying again. And it tasted right, and somewhere in tasting right it had become mine. The recipe did not come back. A new one got born in the same kitchen, from the same hands she taught. That is the part one cannot say without my voice going, so I will just leave it there. This tastes right. I wrote it down. First thing, before I even cleaned up, I wrote my morning cake on a card, in my own handwriting, nothing like my mother's tidy slant, my own messy fast pen. And I wrote at the top the thing she would have written. Rest overnight. Bake till it smells done. The bakery is real now. A small place, 2 blocks from Daniel's coffee shop, with my mother's name over the door, because I argued with myself about whether to use my name, and then I understood it was never a question. It is called Evelyn's. The door is a soft blue. People who knew my mother come in and stand in front of the door for a second before they come inside, and I have stopped asking them if they're okay, because I know what they are doing. They're saying hello. The day we opened, I almost did not get the doors unlocked because I stood in the empty shop at 5 in the morning before anyone came, and I had a few minutes where I just could not move. The morning cakes were in the case. The blue door was painted. My mother's name was on the glass in gold letters a sign man named Earl had done by hand, and Earl had known my mother, and he had refused to let me pay full price. And I stood there in the quiet thinking she designed this in her head for 40 years and never got to stand in it, and now I was standing in it, and the unfairness of that almost put me on the floor. Then Maya came in the back with her apron already on and said, "Mom, it is 10 of 6. There are people." And there were. There was a little line on the sidewalk. Carla was first. Of course Carla was first. The local paper sent a girl who could not have been older than Maya to take a picture and write 3 paragraphs, and the headline they ran said she bakes from memory, which was true and also not the whole truth. By then it was not really memory anymore. At some point I had stopped remembering my mother's baking and started knowing my own. The paper went with memory and I let them. My father comes on Saturdays. We did not have a big dramatic reconciliation, no movie scene, because that is not who we are. What happened is he showed up the second Saturday we were open, and he stood at the counter, and he said, "Your mother would have," and then he could not finish it, and I said, "I know, Dad," and that was most of it. A few weeks later, in the truck, out of nowhere, he said, "I should have told you the minute I found out about the box. I should have told you, and I should have been angry with you instead of keeping the peace. I let you find out the worst way." He had clearly been holding that for months. I told him it was okay, and then I told him it was not, actually, but that we were okay, which is a different and more true thing. And he nodded, and we did not talk the rest of the way, and it was a good quiet. Gloria. There was no scene where she falls apart and begs me, and I forgive her in a rush of music. What there was a card she sent, a store-bought card, with a note inside in her careful handwriting that said she had not understood what those papers were and she was sorry, and that she thought what I had built was something special. She did not write that she had been wrong to throw them out, not exactly, because I do not think Gloria can fully get there. It is not in how she is built. But she tried, in the only register she has. She comes into the bakery sometimes now. She orders a coffee and a lemon bar, and she sits at the table by the window, and we are polite and warm even, on the surface, and underneath there is a thing between us that will never fully close. I have decided I can live with that. Forgiving her all the way would be a lie, and not forgiving her at all would cost me more than it costs her. So we have coffee. That is where we landed. It is not a movie. It is a Tuesday. There was one Tuesday, though, that I keep. Gloria came in like she does, and I had my back to the counter, and when I turned around, she did not order the lemon bar. She asked for a morning cake. A whole one, boxed, to take home. She has never once asked me about the morning cake, never asked what was in it or why it mattered, and there is no way on this earth she did not know by then what that particular cake was, because the whole town knew. It was in the paper. It was the one I lost and rebuilt. She bought a morning cake and she paid for it, and she did not make a speech, and she did not apologize again, and she did not explain herself. She just took the box and said thank you and went out to her car. And I stood there behind the register and understood that Gloria, in the only language she has, the language of doing rather than saying, had finally understood what she threw away. She could not give it back. So she bought a piece of it, at full price, from the daughter she took it from. That was as close to sorry as Gloria gets, and the strange thing is it landed deeper than the card ever did. Maya works the counter after school. The thing I did not see coming, the thing that closes this for me, came a couple of months ago. She came to me with a piece of paper, shy about it, and on it was a recipe she had worked out herself, a brown butter thing with the soft molasses cookies as a starting place, her own idea, her own changes. She had done the tasting and the fixing and the tasting again, on her own, without me telling her to, because she had watched me do it the way I watched my mother do it. And it was good. It was really good. It is in the case right now with her name on the little card. There is a box on the shelf behind the register. A new one, a real wooden recipe box, not a shoebox. I could not do a shoebox. On the lid I had a man at the hardware store engraved 2 words, Evelyn and Rachel. My mother's letter is folded in the back of it, behind the cards, where I can put my hand on it. And the cards in it are in my handwriting now, the messy, fast kind. Every recipe I pulled back out of my own hands the year the box was lost. Last week Maya opened that box and put her brown butter recipe inside it, in her own handwriting, behind mine, behind her grandmother's letter, and she closed the lid, and she did not say anything about it. She just did it and went back to the counter to help a customer. The box is not the one Gloria threw away. We did not get that one back. This is a different box, and it is heavier every month, and there are 3 hands in it now, and the morning cake in it is mine and not my mother's, and the door is blue, and that is where we are.